Welcome back, boys and girls, to another lesson with Miss Brown. So I'm going to be trying something new today. I borrowed somebody else's laptop, and lo and behold, the words are all clear, the letters. The only thing is I can't pause it. Okay, so we're going to have to keep going. When I tell you to pause it, you're going to have to pause it. All right, so we're going to be moving on with our lessons on figurative language. Tonight we're going to be looking at alliteration and hyperbole. So get your writing books and get ready to head up. You can write the title Alliteration. And if you look at how alliteration is spelled, what draws my eyes is these two L's, these double L's. And those double L's help me remember what alliteration means. So this is the definition of alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the same letter sound at the beginning of two or more words. You mostly find in songs and in poems. So you mostly find alliteration in songs and in poems. So at this point, I want you to put me on pause to write down the title and the definitions. Okay, so we're going to be ready to move on. All right, so I'm going to give you a poem. This poem is called Rose Cellar. Let's make sure you can see the whole poem. There we go. This poem is called Rose Cellar. So I'm going to crouch down so you don't have to write this poem out, but I want you just to have a look at the poem. Okay? Olivia, can you please read the poem for us? Rose Cellar? Nice and loud.
Rose Cellar. The man on my corner pulls petals from rosebuds, preparing them perfectly out on the street.
Keep going.
He sells them from buckets. My eyes are enchanted. Pink puddles of petals flood over his feet.
Okay, so the definition of alliteration is the repetition of the same letter sound at the beginning of two or more words. So let's analyze this poem. Let's look for some words that have the same letter or the same letter sound. So let's look at the first line. The first line is the man on my corner. Do you see any words that have the same letter sound? You see it on this first line? Okay, Olivia, do you see any?
Man and mine.
All right, so man and my. So they both have that So the man on my corner. Next line, pulls petals from rosebuds. Do you see any more repetitions of letter sounds? Pulls petals from rosebuds. Okay, Olivia?
Pulls petals.
So pulls has a P and petals has a P. Preparing them perfectly. Preparing them perfectly. What else has repetitions of the same letters? Liz?
Preparing and perfectly.
Good. And alliteration is really a fun figurative language tool to use, especially when you're doing poetry. It just makes it sound fun. It helps it to flow. So pulls petals from rosebuds, preparing them perfectly out on the street. Okay, so in out on the street, I guess we can kind of say out and on, possibly. All right, next line. He sells them from buckets. Don't really see anything there. My eyes are enchanted. What do you see there? My eyes are enchanted. What do you see? Okay, Livy?
Eyes and enchanted.
Eyes and enchanted. Last two lines. Pink puddles of petals float over his feet. Any more examples of alliteration, repetitions of beginning letter sounds? Go ahead, Liz.
Pink puddles
Pink
and petals.
Puddles and petals. Anything else that we see? Any other examples of alliteration? Olivia doesn't see it yet. Do you see it? There's one more. One more example. At the bottom.
Is it float and feet?
It's float and feet. So float and feet. Okay? All right. So this is one example of figurative language that we're going to look at. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so Olivia, you just help me. So remember, I said I don't know how to pause yet with this device. I'm just going to keep going, but it's a lot clearer, so I'm happy with that. All right, so the next example of figurative language is something called a hyperbole. So I underlined this word hyper. If you're hyper, it means you're super duper active. And that's kind of what, a little bit of what hyperbole means. So when you're using hyperbole, you're using language to exaggerate what you mean. So you're kind of like going above and beyond, exaggerating. You're making something sound bigger and better than it really is. So you're being really dramatic. So a hyperbole is an exaggeration. Some people can be really, really dramatic, like, oh goodness, oh, I'm so tired, I'm about to die, I'm about to pass out. Not really, but they're just exaggerating how tired they really are. So I'm going to give you some examples of some hyperboles. But before you do that, you can put me on pause so you can write the title, hyperbole, and then the definitions. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples. All right. Let's look at number 1. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so number 1. 3:30 is never going to arrive. So you're sitting in class, you keep looking at the clock. 3:30 is never going to arrive. That's an exaggeration. Is 3:30 going to actually occur at some point during the day? Yes, it's coming. It might be taking a while, but it's coming. So all this means is that it feels like the day is never going to end. It feels like it's going on and on and on. So let's mark this down. Okay, number 2. Now this is an insult. If somebody says this to you, they're insulting you. Number 2, can you read it for me, Olivia?
Your brain is the size of a pea.
Your brain is the size, have you ever seen a pea, like a little green round pea? Your brain is the size of a pea. If somebody says that to you, can your brain really be the size of a pea? No, our brains are pretty big, not the size of a pea. But if somebody is saying that to you, they're exaggerating something about you. What do you think they're trying to say about you? So boys and girls, what do you think they're saying if they say that your brain's the size of a pea? Maybe what do you think they're trying to say about you?
You're not smart.
Okay, she said you're not smart. So if somebody says that to you, that is an insult. They're trying to insult you. They are exaggerating the fact that they think that you're really not that smart. Again, these are all ways that you can make your writing, especially your poetry, just sound a bit more interesting, a bit more colorful, a bit more fun to read. Okay, 2 more practices. Actually, 3 more practices. Hyperbole, remember, it means to exaggerate, an exaggeration. Number 3, read it for me, Olivia.
I read this book 100 times.
I've read this book 100 times. There might be some books that you really, really like, but do you think you're actually going to read a textbook or a novel book 100 times? That's a lot. Okay, I don't think anybody loves a book that much. So what does that mean if somebody says, I've read this book 100 times? What does that mean? What do you think it means, boys and girls at home? Okay, Olivia, what do you think it means?
It means they've read the book a lot.
It means that they've read the book a lot. They probably really enjoy it. They've really read it a lot of times. 2 more practices. Let's make sure that you can see this. There we go. Okay, number 4. She is as skinny as a toothpick. Have you ever seen a toothpick which you use to clean your teeth in between to get the food out? Okay, a toothpick is really, really thin, but if you say that a person is as skinny as a toothpick, you're basically just saying like they're really super duper skinny. You're just exaggerating the fact that they're that skinny. If they're really as skinny as a toothpick, I don't think they would be alive. And the last one, number 5. Can you read it, Livy?
I'm so hungry I could eat a horse.
A horse is a pretty big animal. So you would have to have a really huge appetite if you were able to eat the hoofs, the legs, the neck, the muzzle, the ears, the belly, the tail. Nobody can eat an entire horse. So that is exaggerating, but they're really trying to say that they are really what? Were they really?
Hungry.
Okay, so they're really, really hungry. Okay? So these are just all ways that you can make your language more interesting, more detailed, more imaginative. You can give whoever's reading your work, your poetry or your story, just some visual images, some imagery. You're going to appeal to their senses, what they see, what they might smell, what they feel. All right? So in the packet I gave you, I actually gave you some practice activities to do at home, some enrichment. If you don't have the packet, here are a few that you can do. Okay. All right, so you can do some alliterative practice, alliteration practice. Try to create 5 alliteration sentences. So 5 sentences using alliteration. So remember, 2 or more words have to have the same beginning sound and using the same consonant letter. So here's my example. I caught a caterpillar crawling in my cornflakes. What are my alliterative words? Well, what letter am I repeating over and over and over again? Can you see it? Maybe what letter am I repeating?
C.
The letter C. So the letters that are alliterative, alliteration are, which words, Olivia?
Caught.
So caught,
Caterpillar.
caterpillar,
Crawling.
crawling,
Cornflake.
cornflakes. Okay, so that's 4. So I want you to come up with 5 of your own alliteration sentences. You can use any letter that you want. Make sense? So now some hyperbole practice. So what do these sentences mean? So there are 3 sentences here. The first one, this bag weighs a ton. A ton is a unit of measurement. My dad will kill me when he comes home. Is he really going to do that? I hope not. I'm so sad I'm drowning in tears. So all of these hyperbole sentences have meaning. They all have their own meaning, but I want you to really think about what they actually mean. This is actually helping your comprehension as well, because sometimes you might be reading and you might see one of these hyperboles and you might be thinking that doesn't even make sense. But you have to understand that it's figurative language that they're using, and you have to dig a little bit deeper to determine what the meaning actually is. So at this point, you can put me on pause so you can get this practice down. You should have it by now. At home, there are 2 activities that you can do. On this section of your packet, I just have a little poem here, a little alliteration poem, kind of like tongue twisters in a sense. So you can just read through this just to get a few more examples of alliteration. And then some hyperbole practice. Let me put it up so you can see my face. There we go. That's a little bit better. And Olivia's face too. All right, so on this page, I give you some more examples of hyperboles, and I want you to come up with your own exaggerations, your own hyperboles. Your topics are going to be sun, school, car, cheetah, and then one of your own. Okay. Imagery, we don't have to do imagery for right now. Imagery should just come natural, so we'll leave that part alone. And then the last thing that you can do as an extension is hyperbole practice. Identify each sentence as a simile, metaphor, or hyperbole. Sometimes hyperboles can actually be a simile. Sometimes you can use, I think it was one of these that was a simile. Can you go back?
I don't know.
Yeah, I did. Can you figure out which sentence was a simile? So remember, similes compare things using like or using as. You
Right.
see it? Olivia's looking.
Yes.
All right, what number is it?
4.
Right, very good, number 4. So she is as skinny as a toothpick. So that's actually hyperbole and a simile. Okay, so at home, you can just decide if these sentences are a simile, a metaphor, or hyperbole. Okay? All right, so I'm at 13 minutes. I feel like I raced through it. So I didn't pause this time, but I hope it wasn't too fast. I hope it makes sense. So get some practice in, because you will be seeing this at some point very soon. And it's good that you have an introduction now, so that's a little bit easier when it's your turn to use these in your writing. Okay? So thank you for joining me. Thank you for being my little helper, Miss Olivia. You want to say bye? And I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow for the last lesson of the week. Bye.